Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas, on Thursday, March the 24th, and welcome to our commentary. Feeling a little better today, as you can tell. Well, today we're going to talk about a couple of issues, and I want to begin by referring to a great article in the Wall Street Journal by Karl Rove. Some of you remember Karl Rove. He was the political mastermind, if you will, of George W. Bush. They used to call him the great architect, and he saw the first and the second victory of George W. Bush. I guess also the one here in Texas where he won and was reelected as governor. But Karl Rove is a great student of the American political system, and when you want good analysis of what's going to happen, Karl Rove is one of the people you got to be talking to because he knows what's going on. He just wrote an article at the Wall Street Journal. You know, if you don't know this, I think he writes an article every Thursday. So I really enjoy reading his article every Thursday. And in this article, he's making the point that there is an internal battle within the Democrat Party, an internal battle that is headed right into the midterms. And the battle is between the center and the left, between the center and the left. The center tends to be older Democrats like Nancy Pelosi. I know you don't think she's a centrist, but in today's Democrat Party, she actually is. And some of the older Democrats. And the left is younger, more energetic, and frankly, a lot more exciting as a political force. And the left would be the Squad, AOC, and so on. And this is a great battle happening within the Democrat Party. And the bad news for the Democrat Party is that the left is winning the battle, meaning the left is gaining more and more influence on the party. And the best example of this is right here in Texas, in South Texas, District number 28, where incumbent Henry Cuellar, a mainstream traditional Democrat, the kind of Democrat that there used to be a lot of at one time. He has been one of the biggest critics, for example, of the Biden border policy. He has just been forced into a runoff by Jessica Cisneros, who is one of these very energetic and very youthful, but left-wing portion of the party. Now, who wins that runoff? I don't know. They still have almost 2 months to campaign. And as I said before, the left has the energy. They're the ones who are going to come to your house, knock on the door, and ask you to vote for them. The center doesn't quite have that much energy. Now, it may be different in that district, but nevertheless, that tends to be the national pattern. And if you're the Democrat Party and you're looking at 2022, and you're already running behind because of gasoline prices and everything else, this division within the party between the left and the center is terrible news. It's terrible news. Now, you could look at the bright side of this, and that is that I think that the party is going to take some heavy losses in November, and you could very well see the left break away from the party. Now, I know a lot of Democrats who would love to see that. They would love to see the left just break away and become more of a left-wing party, and then the Democrats sort of remake themselves as more of a center-left party, but more centrist. That could happen. But nobody really knows, but that could happen. But the one thing we can say for sure is that the Democrats as a party are going to be the big loser here. Because, again, go back to District 28 in South Texas. Imagine that somehow Henry Cuellar wins that runoff. He's only going to win by maybe a couple of points. What happens to Jessica Cisneros and all of those people? Who are they going to vote for? I don't know. My guess is they're going to stay home. Or my guess is that they could also form an independent party, a third party, and basically hand the election to the Republicans. So that's the problem. That's the problem that you're having between these two groups, because the left in the Democrat Party is not going to compromise. It's their way or the highway, as they say. So it's a very bad situation for the Democrats. You know, the Republicans, we had issues like that before, but I don't think we never had them to the extreme that the Democrats are going to have them this year. So this is going to be a very tough year for the Democrats. And again, as Karl Rove was writing in that tremendous article at the Wall Street Journal, the problem is a rift between the left and the center. And frankly, the left is winning most of these arguments. They're the ones with the energy, and they're the ones with the money. A good example of the rift is energy. There's a lot of people in Texas, a lot of Democrats, a lot of centrist Democrats who are saying, hey, we need to produce more oil. We can't just, shut off, oil production and hope that some Green New Deal is going to work overnight. The left is saying, no, we got to stop oil completely. Well, that's the kind of struggle, I think, that you're seeing here in Texas. And you may be seeing that in other states as well, but definitely here in Texas, we can see that because we live here. Judge Brown is probably going to get in. I would argue again that it's all the numbers. Right now, you've got a 50-50 Senate. If she were to get all 50 Democrats, she's in because the VP breaks the tie and she's in. But something must be happening among the Democrats, because the way they're reacting to her presentation suggests that they weren't too happy with the presentation, that maybe they thought that she didn't do a good job. And, I don't think she did. I think that she looked like completely unprepared for some of the questions that she was going to get. Normally, when you send a nominee to the Supreme Court, to the Senate, particularly in this very polarized environment, what you do is you take that person for 30 days and you practice and you practice and you rehearse questions. And you kind of got the impression from the judge that if they did that, they didn't do it well enough. She looked awfully uncomfortable in some of the issues. And some of the questions or some of her answers were frankly pretty silly. Like, she doesn't know the definition of what a woman is. Well, there's a very important reason why that is an important topic. And I have a post about this over at the American Thinker today, and you can read it in this page or over at the American Thinker if you get over there. And the issue is that the whole question of who is a woman is going to be contested in the courts. As you may know, there are universities allowing young men to compete as women in sporting events. And some women are saying, no, that's not fair. That's not right. He is not a woman. He is a man, even though he says that he's a woman. That doesn't make him a woman. So the definition of what is a woman is actually a pretty important topic, a pretty important question. And the way that the judge answered that question was to say, well, I don't know the answer. I'm not a biologist. Well, I didn't know that you needed a biologist to tell you that you're a woman. I mean, I know who a woman is. I think everybody knows who a woman is. You don't need a biologist to tell you that. So I don't think she came across very well. Now, some of the other questions about her sentencing and all of that guidelines, I think a lot of that got very, very technical, and a lot of people may not find that very interesting, but nevertheless, there's no question that the Democrats are worried because they don't have that many votes, remember, to lose. They lose one Democrat and it's over. And that one Democrat could very well be Joe Manchin of West Virginia, a very conservative state where I don't think her performance went over very well. That's just a gut feeling. So we'll see how it goes. But the fact that you've got a lot of people running to her defense, saying that, they were being unfair on her. I didn't think they were being unfair at all. I thought the questions were extremely professional, extremely elegant, and what was the unfairness of it? I don't see it. I mean, if you put yourself up for that job at the Supreme Court, you should be able to answer questions like that, especially about the opinions that you wrote. So check out my piece over at the American Thinker. It's called "More Than a Woman," and it's kind of a play on that song by the Bee Gees, back in the 70s, "More Than a Woman to Me." Well, that's kind of what the title is about. Kind of, let's have a little fun with the topic, but the issue is very serious. And that is, a woman is a woman, a man is a man. And if you have judges who don't understand that, you've got a problem. You've got a real problem, especially at some of these universities, as I say, where young women are being defeated in sporting events by men who pretend to be women. I think that's a disgrace. I think that's an insult to our intelligence to allow a man to compete as a woman. And, I have 3 sons, but I have 5 nieces. And I would have been very angry if one of my nieces had been forced to compete in high school or college in a sporting event against a man. I would have been very angry about that because it's completely unfair. Well, let's go back in history very quickly here. On this day in 1958, Elvis Presley went into the Army. Now, we may not realize how important that is, but back then, he was the #1 artist in the world, and he probably had all the abilities and all the money and all the contacts to get out of military service. But I think Elvis understood that he had to go, because if he had tried to get out, that would have looked real bad on him. So he went. He did his 2 years. He came back as popular as ever. Elvis going in the military on this day in 1958. And we remember today one of the most interesting politicians of the 20th century, Thomas Dewey. Thomas Dewey was born on this day in 1902. He went on to become the governor of New York. He was the governor of New York for about 11 years, and he ran for president twice. He ran for president in 1944 when FDR was elected for the 4th time. And then he ran for president in 1948, where everybody thought he was going to win. All the experts thought that he was going to win. But it turned out that President Truman won that election in a very narrow margin. And that, of course, you may have seen that picture of Harry Truman holding the newspaper headline saying, "Dewey beats Truman." And that's because a lot of newspapers were so convinced that Dewey was going to win that they literally printed their morning edition on the assumption that Dewey was going to win. Well, it didn't turn out that way. Obviously, Truman, he wasn't reelected because he succeeded FDR, but he won the election of 1948. So Thomas Dewey, one of the most interesting personalities of the 20th century. He never got to be president, but he tried it twice. But he was a really good governor of New York, very popular governor of New York. Well, thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.